Respected guest of honor, honorable diplomats, esteemed politicians, academicians, renowned journalists, civil society representatives, business leaders, and respected guests. A very good morning to you all. I feel privileged to welcome you all to today's event named Meet the Ambassador. The event is being organized by the Center for Governance Studies in collaboration with the Friedrich-Ebert-Stiftung, Bangladesh. This is the second event of our Meet the Ambassador series. I am Mahbubur Rahman, your host for today's event. We have with us today the guest of honor of the event, His Excellency Robert Chatterton. The recognize the value of deep social, cultural, intellectual, and people-to-people links, including vibrant diaspora connections and our shared membership of the Commonwealth. With the establishment of British High Commission in Dhaka, the then UK Foreign Secretary Sir Alec Douglas Home visited Bangladesh in 1972. Since then, the UK has been a committed partner of this country in various sectors such as research, health services, community development. Gentlemen, the podium, Dr. Monjure Chowdhury, Chairman of Center for Governance Studies and also the Chairman of National River Conservation Commission Bangladesh, to share his opening remarks with us. Sir.
Thank you, Mahbub. His Excellency Mr. Robert Chatterton Dixon, Honorable British High Commissioner to Bangladesh, Mr. Sadhan Kumar Das from FES, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good morning to you all. On behalf of Center for Governance Studies, I welcome you all to this important meeting. Recently, FES, Friedrich-Ebert-Stiftung, and Center for Governance Studies initiated a program called Meet the Ambassador. The idea behind this program is to facilitate exchange of views, opinions amongst the diplomat stationed here in Dhaka and Bangladesh, and also a cross-section of people. It is a people-to-people diplomacy, you may call it. This is the second episode of our program, and here we are immensely honored that His Excellency Mr. Dixon accepted our invitation. Ally, valuable friend for the Bengali people. From economic point of view, 1/3 of our export destination is Britain. It's very important for us. More than 200 British companies are operating in this country. There are several billions of pound investment in this country. Apart from this economic relationship, I would like to emphasize here that we have a shared cultural heritage, I should say. More than 500,000 Bengali or Bangladesh origin people live in Britain. They live there with dignity. They live there with their. I'm not going to give a long list of our achievements and our failures and our experiences of Bangladesh-Britain bilateral relationship, because it's a long one. Now, once again, I would like to thank you all for coming to this event, and I am again thankful to His Excellency, Mr. Dixon. Thank you all.
Sir, sir, thank you for your valuable speech. Now, I would like to welcome to the podium Program Coordinator of FES Bangladesh, Mr. Sadhan Kumar Das, to share his thoughts with us. Yeah.
This is Sadhan Kumar Das, FAS. And you may know about FAS, even though I will talk a bit about FAS. FAS is a German political foundation. The foundation owes its formation and its mission to the political legacy of its namesake Friedrich-Ebert, the first democratically elected German president. The work of our political foundation focuses on the core ideas and values of social democracy: freedom, justice, and solidarity. Bangladesh and the United Kingdom have historic relations and traditional friendly ties. Bangladesh recalls with deep gratitude the support of the British people across various constituencies and that of the then British political leaders during the Liberation War in 1971. The UK was among the first of the European countries to recognize Bangladesh on 4th February 1972, and that influenced quick recognition by the other Commonwealth and Western countries. After independence, Bangladesh and UK relations have been strengthened in many areas that already being told by our speaker Mahbub. Very recently, Bangladesh and UK have held the first ever defense dialogue as the two countries seek to take the bilateral relationship to a strategic level. Since independence, Bangladesh has been progressing steadily. Thus, it has already been achieved a lot. It has become a lower middle income country in 2015, and by 2026, it will graduate from LDC countries to developing countries. Now it has been focusing on quality of life, strategic negotiations in bilateral talks, strong regional cooperation for trade and security. When Bangladesh and the UK is celebrating 50th anniversary of their diplomatic relations, then we need to look into the quality of the bilateral relationship as well as to explore options for future relations. With this little introduction, I look forward to listening your productive and effective conversations on present, past, and futures of Bangladesh and the UK relations. For these conversations, His Excellency Robert Chatterton Dixon, British High Commissioner to Bangladesh, is with us to respond to your questions and queries. Most welcome, His Excellency. Thank you.
Thank you for your short but valuable speech. So, ladies and gentlemen, now it is time for the conversation with Honorable High Commissioner. So, for this reason, I would like to request Mr. Jilur Rahman, Executive Director of Center for Governance Studies, to take the role of moderating the upcoming sessions and accompany Mr. High Commissioner to the stage. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum and namaskar. Today we are discussing the relationship between the United Kingdom and Bangladesh in light of Bangladesh's current economic status and the ongoing geopolitical developments in the Asia region as a whole. In order to discuss the topic, as you all know, that we have with us today Mr. Robert Chatterton Dixon, the British High Commissioner to Bangladesh. He is responsible for representing the United Kingdom and spreading the British government's priorities in Bangladesh. Before assuming his role in Bangladesh, Robert was additional director of the Western Balkans program in the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office. He also served as a director in the National Security Secretariat in the Cabinet Office, heading the Secretariat team supporting the National Security Council and the National Security Advisor. He was also responsible for coordinating policy on a range of international issues and had led responsibility in NSS for the Cross-Government Conflict, Stability and Security Fund and Prosperity Fund. Mr. High Commissioner, I would like to invite you to take the control of the podium and the microphone for your introductory speech.
Thank you very much. Well, good morning. It's a tremendous pleasure to be here. And I'd like to start by thanking the Centre for Governance Studies and the Friedrich-Ebert-Stiftung for providing a podium for my remarks this morning. And also to thank you, Zula, for your role as moderator. It's very nice to see you again in this capacity, as opposed to the many other capacities in which we meet. This is actually a wonderful time to be High Commissioner in Bangladesh. I've now been here for 3.5 years, and as you'll know, it's been an interesting and in some ways quite turbulent time for our own domestic politics in the UK. So I can't really comment in detail on what's going on within the Conservative Party, because that obviously is a matter for the party. But what I can say is that we will see a change of Prime Minister in the UK next month. I don't know whether the winner will be Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss, but whichever it is, I think what I can say with some confidence is that the things that I'm going to talk about this morning in terms of the UK-Bangladesh first press conference, his first series of announcements as a free man and as the president-elect, effectively, of a newly independent Bangladesh in Claridge's Hotel. And then, of course, his first meeting with a world leader as a free man was with our then Prime Minister Edward Heath on the steps of 10 Downing Street. And he was returned to the newly independent Bangladesh for him to assume the leadership there in an aircraft of the Royal Air Force. So there's been a very strong relationship between the UK and Bangladesh right from the start. But over the last 50 years, really the relationship has been transformed by all sorts of factors. And in this 51st year of what we call the Brit-Bangla Bond-on, the links between the UK and Bangladesh, we as the High Commission team, with our colleagues in London, and with my opposite number, the Bangladeshi High Commissioner in London, Her Excellency Munat Tasneem, we've been working very hard to build on all the links that exist, building on the deep history between our two countries. And that very much includes, as already been mentioned, the 600,000 people in the UK with Bangladeshi heritage, many of whom, of course, are now in prominent public positions, including 4 elected members of the House of Commons, members of the House of Lords, judges, doctors, lawyers, entertainers, footballers. Really, Bangladeshis contributing as a visible and confident part of a multicultural UK right across the piece in a way that's really great to see. But at the government level, in terms of what we do as governments, we're working on a whole range of issues which include security, defence, climate, COVID and the recovery from the pandemic, trade, and a whole range of issues on which we work very closely with friends and partners in and beyond the government of Bangladesh. And we do all this in line with a global strategy. We have been going through a fundamental reappraisal of our place in the world following our historic decision to exit the European Union. And last year we published an integrated review of our foreign and defence policy, a key part of which is what we call the Indo-Pacific tilt, a rebalancing of our policy towards this part of the world, which is clearly the fastest growing economic region, the Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, the parts of the world in which growth is likely to be concentrated in the coming decades. Competition has never looked more serious than it has before. And I think it's worth reminding ourselves of the ways in which norms, international norms, the norms that have really guided the world to unprecedented prosperity since 1945, are now being threatened. And of course, I'm talking in particular about the Russian aggression against Ukraine, which the day after tomorrow will have been going on for 6 months. And I think one thing we can say, regardless of how this conflict ends, and it's clearly a long way from ending, it has been a disaster for everyone. And I would very much include Russia in that. 6 months after Russia launched its illegal war, we're all living with the consequences. The people of Ukraine are living with flattened cities and terrible war crimes against innocent civilians. The people of Russia are living with the crushing of all forms of dissent, the most comprehensive sanctions that have ever been imposed on a single country, and the exit of many of their most skilled and talented citizens. And the rest of the world, including Bangladesh and the UK, are living with inflation caused by disruption of supply chains and rocketing of food and fuel prices in ways that are clearly undermining economic and social stability all over the world. And we should all be clear that the responsibility for these negative consequences lies with Russia and Russian aggression, and not with the sanctions that have had to be imposed by the outside world in response to that Russian aggression. And we in the UK have been very clear. Our Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and I have no doubt both of his potential successors, have been very clear that we as the UK will continue to support Ukrainian independence, to support the sovereign right of Ukraine to determine its own future. And we will continue to supply Ukraine with the weapons and the training that it needs for self-defense. And our ministers have been very clear that whatever the outcome of the immediate competition within the Conservative Party, that will remain our policy. And I think that is a policy with very strong cross-party support in the UK. So just to be clear on that geopolitical issue, coming back to the relationship with Bangladesh, here in Bangladesh, we're working very hard with British business to build a trade and development relationship as Bangladesh graduates during this decade from least developed to middle-income country, which represents an extraordinary national achievement based on decades of sound policy making. And I was very pleased that the Honourable Prime Minister and other senior Bangladeshis were able to promote this opportunity that Bangladesh now represents for international investment at a roadshow, at roadshows in London and Manchester last year. But it does seem to me that graduation represents, if you like, not a finishing post for the country, but a milestone. And continuing to support Bangladesh, Bangladesh prospers and becomes a more confident international actor, we will see the country become more open to international investment. And for us in the UK, as a very service-driven economy, that particularly means greater opportunity for our companies to sell here the high-value financial, education and health services in which we lead the world. And if I was to focus on one sector in particular where I think there is opportunity, it would be higher education. Because the cross-border higher education rules, newly passed in Bangladesh in 2016, if implemented in full, would give UK universities the opportunity to do here in Bangladesh what they've been able to do successfully in countries like Malaysia and Sri Lanka, and establish campuses here which would open up high-quality British education to young Bangladeshis in Bangladesh. Now, clearly we're delighted that the number of Bangladeshi students in the UK has increased very significantly over the last few years. It's obviously made more attractive by the fact that Bangladeshis graduating in the UK can now stay on for 2 years post-graduation work experience. That's a great thing. But it would be even better, in my view, if we had UK universities able to deliver here in Bangladesh at a much more competitive cost their educational products, their degrees for young Bangladeshis, which would also help those young Bangladeshis to acquire the skills that are clearly going to be needed for Bangladesh to continue on its remarkable growth journey. So one of my priorities as High Commissioner, I've discussed this many times with the Honourable Education Minister, and in particular with the Deputy Education Minister, who is a graduate of the London School of Economics and with whom we have had very good conversations on this subject. We would really like to see an opening up of the Bangladeshi higher education market to UK universities who are interested in coming here, but have found that getting regulatory and government approval for their operations has not been as easy as they might have hoped. So we very much hope that it will be possible for young Bangladeshis to access a UK-provided world-class education here in Bangladesh in the not-too-distant future, because that would give Bangladesh the skills that Bangladesh needs to thrive as a middle-income country. And that focus on rules, that focus on open market and international standards really drives our wider view that long-term stability and economic growth flourish best in open and democratic societies with strong institutions, public accountability, free speech and media, and competitive elections. And I think if I was asked, what is it that will help a country to thrive as a middle-income country, then I think more than anything, it is institutional quality. It is institutions with sufficient quality to provide a rule of law in which international investors can be confident that will persuade those international investors to come to countries, put their money in, make it work, and produce the private sector-led economic growth, which is by far the best foundation for long-term prosperity. And I think when we look at where Bangladesh is in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business rankings at number 168, I think we can see together that there is scope for institutional quality to be improved here. And I think it will be a wonderful thing if that can happen. And in terms of our own development assistance, which is evolving to reflect the evolution of the country and the economy, then that emphasis on institutional quality is going to continue to be an important aspect of the work that we as the UK do to try to encourage good quality, private sector-led, jobs-intensive growth here in Bangladesh. And that emphasis on institutional quality is also why, with international partners, we support plural and transparent democracy in Bangladesh. It's clearly provided in the 1972 Constitution. And I think most immediately what that would mean would be a fair and credible process for the elections, which are due here towards the end of 2023. And if you asked me what that would look like in practice, I would say that would mean, first of all, allowing all parties to organise and be heard in advance of the election so that there can be a real debate about the future of the country. Secondly, it would mean everyone being able to cast their vote freely on the day. And it's obviously an issue for the Election Commission and the government here exactly how that is done, whether that means electronic voting or some form of paper voting. That is not something that foreigners need to express an opinion on here in Bangladesh. We also work very closely with the government here on one of the key issues that is really threatening the region as a whole when we look at the threat to stability represented by the problems in Myanmar. And in particular, the way in which the problems in Myanmar and the very visible oppression carried out in Rakhine State have resulted in the world's largest stateless population of Rohingyas being here in southern Bangladesh. And our shared aim with the government of Bangladesh is very much, and indeed shared with the refugees themselves, is to see as soon as possible the voluntary, safe and dignified repatriation of the Rohingyas as soon as conditions in Rakhine State enable them to return home. We're about to approach, next week we will see the 5th anniversary of the crisis developing in its current form, with the very appalling atrocities that were committed against the Rohingyas in 2017. And I think it's fair to say that Bangladesh continues to be extraordinarily generous in its response. The refugees have access to healthcare, food, shelter and water. And we've seen extraordinary generosity, including in the efforts that were made by the government and its international partners to roll out COVID-19 vaccines for the refugees. But despite all this progress, the situation remains very challenging for the Rohingyas themselves and for the host communities among whom they live, and among the Rohingyas in particular for women and girls. And we can see quite significant problems, both continuing and developing in the camps and among the host communities. We as the UK have been a leading donor to the international response to the Rohingya refugee crisis, having contributed over £320 million since 2017. And I should stress that money has gone both to support refugees in the camps, but also to support host communities. But this crisis is a tragedy for all involved. No one chooses to live in a refugee camp, and no one chooses to have a large influx of refugees and displaced people living among them. And as with so many other refugees worldwide, the great majority of the Rohingya population are very clear that what they want to ensure that the Rohingyas and Bangladesh are not forgotten. We regularly raise the plight of the Rohingyas on the international stage, including in our role as penholders in the UN Security Council. And as a new dialogue partner of ASEAN, we continue to support the efforts of the ASEAN Special Envoy. So although I have to confess that this crisis does not look as if it lends itself to an easy or a quick solution, we are absolutely aligned with the government in wanting to encourage and enable the refugees to go home in the right conditions, and also trying to create the international political conditions which will ultimately enable that to do so. And the fact that this is not likely to be quick doesn't in any way threaten or undermine our support for this policy. So when we look, I'll just mention very briefly, because I'm sure Zilla and I will be able to discuss this as part of our conversation, some of the other ways in which we work with the government of Bangladesh. We gave strong support during the COVID-19 pandemic response, working with the Ministry of Health to develop the national response plan. And I think it's been a huge success in Bangladesh, the way in which Bangladesh has avoided the worst the worst depredations of the disease, and the way in which an effective national vaccine program, including, of course, now school children, has been rolled out, and the way in which Bangladesh has been able to return to a state of relative normality. And I was very pleased that as part of that we were able to provide 4.1 million vaccines under COVAX, which I hope made some contribution. We're also, as was mentioned in the introductory discussion, developing a defence dialogue. We think defence and security are very important parts of our relationship in a region where we are seeing increasing geopolitical competition. And we're seeing some practical manifestations of that. I was very pleased last year that we had the first Royal Navy visit to Bangladesh in 13 years, with the visit of HMS Kent, part of our carrier strike group deployment to the Indo-Pacific region, able to come to Chittagong. And we're very much hoping to welcome another ship to Chittagong before long. And we're also hoping to develop more operational training and relationship between the Royal Navy and the Bangladesh Navy, whose shared heritage, I think, makes them in many ways very natural partners. We held our defence dialogue, as was mentioned, in March, and we looked at ways in which we can work together, including more active UK participation in Bangladesh-led disaster response exercises, which are a very impressive thing that happens every autumn, led by the military here. And we're also very keen to learn from the Bangladeshi experience in peacekeeping. Bangladesh has a remarkable role as the largest single contributor to UN peacekeeping, and we're very keen, as we do more peacekeeping ourselves, including in very challenging environments like Mali, where our troops work together. We're very keen to learn from Bangladesh, and I was very pleased that we were able to send two officers to observe an exercise between US and Bangladeshi forces earlier this year at the Bangladesh Institute for Peace Operations Support Training, BIPSOT, which is a really useful international resource that Bangladesh hosts. We're working together on climate in a slightly different part of the forest, if you like, and the Bangladesh UK-Bangladesh Climate Partnership, launched in January 2020, is strengthening cooperation right across the priority themes of climate, whether it's adaptation, clean energy, nature finance, and clean transport. And at the COP26 conference in Glasgow last year, at which we were very happy to welcome the Honourable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, we announced a new £120 million Bangladesh-UK Climate and Environment Partnership, which is now beginning to roll out. And we will continue to exchange expertise, share technology, facilitate partnerships, and identify practical solutions to common climate partnerships, with the shared aim of producing the real change we need to keep the rise in global temperatures below 1.5 degrees. And I think we can all do more in this field. And as I've said, this summer has given us very dramatic and uncomfortable evidence of the urgency of the climate emergency. So it's an exciting time to be here. I have absolutely relished my 3.5 years so far in Bangladesh. I very much regret that it's likely that during 2023 I will have to move on to pastures new, because I have to say this is an exceptionally exciting time to be British High Commissioner, working with a UK which is reinvesting. Despite the challenges in Europe, we are reinvesting and redoubling our efforts in the Indo-Pacific region. And here in Bangladesh, we have the opportunity to work with an increasingly confident and outward-looking country, sharing
the successes of the British High Commission in Dhaka.
Thank you. Well, I think the relationship is in very good order. I think, fundamentally, I think if you divide the world into people who challenge the geopolitical order and people who work constructively within it, then I think Bangladesh is very much in the second camp. Bangladesh is a country which I think, in many ways, if you look at the success of Bangladesh over the last 50 years, it's based on trading, the increasing ability to trade competitively with the international community. And if you look at where the big markets for Bangladeshi exports are, they are in, by and large, the OECD countries. And that trade, which is really the basis for Bangladesh's increasing prosperity, community, ensure that challenge, that effort, if you like, to go back to an earlier way where states simply fought each other, is not successful, because we all benefit in terms of our security, peace, prosperity from a rules-based international system. And I would absolutely say that Bangladesh is both a contributor to, but also a very large beneficiary from that rules-based international system. And that really is the framework within which our bilateral relationship takes place. And so that's really the core focus of what we work on together. And I think that's in good shape.
Mr. High Commissioner, we all know that the UK is set to announce the new Prime Minister between Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss on September 5, 2022. How might the relations between Bangladesh and the United Kingdom change under the new leadership of the Conservative Party? Will there be any shifting in current priorities regarding the UK's Indo-Pacific foreign policy?
No, I think I would expect. I mean, obviously, it's not for me as a civil servant, as a diplomat, to comment on the nature of the competition. But there is obviously a debate going on within the party, and there will be a vote, and we will have a result on the 5th of September and a new Prime Minister on the 6th of September. But I don't think, if you look at the subjects that have been debated within the party, is where the growth is going to be economically, and therefore increasing significance politically in the next 2, 3, 4 decades. I think that analysis is completely sound. What we do unfortunately have to do, I think, is invest a bit more directly in European security than we had hoped. We hoped that we had a set of rules which ensured that Europe would remain secure, and clearly Russia's illegal, barbaric act of aggression has challenged that, so we are having to recalibrate. But the basic analysis about the Indo-Pacific tilt and the increase in resources which we see, I don't think will change.
And across the world, we are seeing a drastic rise in inflation, driven by pent-up consumer demand after the pandemic and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This global economic crisis is also being felt far away from the conflict. Our cost of imports is rising exponentially, while the demand of Bangladesh RMG and in the UK and other major trade partners is falling. Do you believe the UK market has the potential to harm the UK-Bangladesh trade?
Well, it's actually been interesting because, I mean, the first thing to be said about inflation is it's come about quite suddenly. I mean, a year ago, nobody had predicted, the Bank of England, nobody was predicting inflation at the current rate of 10%, which is a very profound economic challenge. And I think the first priority of whoever wins the leadership contest is going to be to bring inflation under control. And the Bank of England, who have responsibility in the UK for setting interest rates, have been very clear that they are alarmed by the situation and they will respond appropriately. But I think it's been remarkable actually how strong RMG exports have been from Bangladesh into the UK, and we haven't yet seen significant evidence of a slowdown. And it is remarkable how significant a role Bangladesh now plays in a trend that is, for all sorts of reasons, likely to continue.
Robert, tensions in the South China Sea have escalated considerably due to a series of provocative events, as many people say it. A significant consideration behind this escalation is the trilateral security pact between the UK, USA and Australia, AUKUS. We know that AUKUS was formed with the expressed intent of arming Australia with the nuclear-powered submarines, a matter that China intensely opposes. Do you believe such provocations and escalation benefit the goal of a free and open Indo-Pacific region? Could there be a multilateral and diplomatic format of negotiation where all significant stakeholders might discuss the differences and hash out a mutually beneficial solution for the problem?
Well, I think the thing about AUKUS, the Australia, UK, US agreement that was announced last year, is that we already work together very closely. I mean, we have the Five Eyes intelligence relationship, which also, of course, includes New Zealand and Canada, as well as Australia, the UK, and the US. So it wasn't sort of built from nothing. It's the intensification of a series of relationships in the defence and security field that are already very well developed. And it came out of the Australian desire to have the capabilities that Australia needs to look after its interests in the conditions that it sees developing in the 21st century. And it's obviously for the Australian High Commissioner, not for me, to address those precise issues. But we are very happy to work very closely. I mean, the relationships that we have with Australia and the US are some of the closest that we have anywhere in the world. And so we were building on something that already existed. So I think, it's important to analyse it in that sense, that this is not a fundamental realignment. This is building more on relationships that already existed. And it's based, as I said, on a sovereign Australian desire to have what it regards as the capability that it needs to look after its own security in the emerging, increasingly competitive Pacific environment of the 21st century. So we were responding to that. And I think it's important not to overreact. And of course, the important thing to remember about the submarines is that they're nuclear powered, but they do not carry nuclear weapons. So they are, it is a very potent capability, but it is not the same as a nuclear weapons capability.
The British International Investment Company has a portfolio of over 270 million USD investment in Bangladesh. What is your opinion about the current level of investment from the UK in Bangladesh? And do you think the portfolio will be affected directly due to Bangladesh's rising inflation?
I think, there's two things to this. One is that, British investors are already the second largest cumulative investors in Bangladesh. If you look at the biggest taxpayers in Bangladesh, they tend to be British companies. These are companies that are very good corporate citizens. So companies like HSBC, Standard Chartered, Unilever, British American Tobacco, these are companies that play a very constructive role in the economy of Bangladesh, and they regularly feature at the list of the most highly regarded companies. But they operate independently, and they are very interested in some of the opportunities here, particularly in fields like sort of healthcare, green energy. There are some really interesting opportunities in Bangladesh, and I'm very glad that we have a good source of reliable, clean capital available here to support economic growth in Bangladesh. And what I would like to do, and I've been working hard on, is trying to bring more new British private sector investment into Bangladesh. And as I said, we were very pleased to have the roadshow in Bangladesh, from Bangladesh, headed by the Honourable Prime Minister in London and Manchester last year. I do think there is a challenge which still needs to be addressed, which is around converting the very, the scale and growth of the market is very impressive, but I think the experience of foreign companies in Bangladesh is sometimes that the actual process of investing here, acquiring land, getting involved in anything to do with the legal system, acquiring permissions, permits, that can be quite a long process. And I think anything that could be done to sort of match the rhetoric of BEDA in terms of speeding up these processes would be very welcome, because I think if you look at foreign direct investment as a whole in Bangladesh, at 1% of GDP, it's still quite low. And again, for the country to continue to thrive and grow as a middle-income country, then lessons elsewhere are that FDI, that foreign direct investment, is really important. And I think, as I said in my talk, I think institutional quality is the key to drawing that in. And I think, if I'm honest, there is more work to be done there.
Mr. High Commissioner, we understand that the UK will launch the Developing Countries Trading Scheme in early 2023, replacing Bangladesh's current GSP as an LDC. May we hear from you a little bit about this new preferential trade agreement between the UK and Bangladesh?
Yes, I mean, the point about the Developing Countries Trading Scheme, and it includes Bangladesh, is that it's designed to take advantage of our new freedom outside the European Union to provide greater duty-free, quota-free access to our market to a wider range of countries. And actually, because Bangladesh already has very well-developed exports to the UK, principally through RMG, but not only through RMG, Bangladesh is actually very well, probably better placed than almost any other country to take advantage of that. So I think, the commentary around what we have done is that it's a generous offer, taking full advantage of our new ability to trade globally, which we've gained from our exit from the European Union. And as I said, I think Bangladesh is in the happy position of already being a major exporter. And as I said, I think the key thing that Bangladesh needs to do is to broaden and diversify, because, as you were mentioning, I mean, ready-made garments are quite vulnerable to a downturn in consumer confidence. You can always put off buying a new shirt if you really have to, and wear the old one, even though the collar's getting a bit frayed. And so I think garments probably are among the more vulnerable sectors to an economic slowdown. So, I would hope that over the next this will be a long process. Bangladesh will be increasing, the range of areas where the very competitive production that is clearly possible here, as RMG proves, can be extended into a wider range of sectors. And we see examples of that. I mean, pharmaceuticals interestingly, there is a major UK company who sources bicycles in Bangladesh. And there's other examples. Optics is another good one. So there's plenty of other examples of sort of nascent industries where there are companies here with ambition and capability who I hope can replicate the success of RMG and make it a more broadly, like any good investment portfolio, it needs to be based on diversity as well as on strength in an individual sector.
Robert, as you know that Bangladesh has a long-standing issues regarding human rights violations conducted by the state. Will the new preferential trade agreement be predicated of the government of Bangladesh abiding by certain human rights protection standards?
Well, yes. I mean, you're right that one of the things that the new scheme does look at is human rights, and we do have questions about human rights in Bangladesh. We publish an annual human rights report. So we have questions about some of the actions of the security forces. We have questions about political freedom, questions about freedom of speech, and about the operation of the Digital Security Act in particular. So I think it will be, clearly those things will be taken into account in looking at how the new trading scheme applies to this market. And I think it was interesting actually to see the UN High Commissioner on Human Rights here last week, and I think
Bachelet.
Yes, High Commissioner Bachelet, I think, raised issues that are questions in the international community in a wider sense, and I think it would be good to see improvements in those areas. That would make things better for everyone.
And you all know that the UK has supported Bangladesh funding since 2017 regarding the Rohingya refugee crisis. Do you think only financial support will be a long-term measure to the current crisis? And how can we keep the issue relevant in international discourse?
Well, I think it's a very good question. I mean, we will continue to support. We have still a significant, support. We are giving significant support to the Rohingyas. We are, while strong advocates for more productive lives for the Rohingyas while they're in Bangladesh, not to enable them to remain here indefinitely, but because that is the best way to mitigate the security problems that clearly a large group of stateless people with difficult lives otherwise represent. So we are working very productively with the government on both funding, food security, water and sanitation, but also encouraging the ability of the Rohingyas to have productive and useful lives as far as they can while they're here. On your other question, yes, absolutely. We are working very hard to try and make sure that this does not become a forgotten crisis. Clearly, there is now a huge refugee crisis throughout the world. I mean, you've got refugees in Afghanistan, Yemen, Horn of Africa, and of course, the illegal, unprovoked Russian aggression in Ukraine has caused an enormous refugee crisis in Europe. So there is pressure on resources available for refugees all over the world in the context of a wider economic difficulties. So we will continue to fund, but the actual amount may have to be reduced because of competition from elsewhere. But what we are doing, as I said, is we are continuing to make sure that in the UN Security Council and elsewhere, the Rohingya issue is not forgotten. We continue to focus on this crisis. We think it's a terrible tragedy for everyone, including the Rohingyas, including the people of Myanmar, who've got this terrible government that is crushing their rights. And it's obviously a very difficult situation for the people of Bangladesh, and we are working very hard to make sure that this crisis remains on the international radar. So we raised it in the UN. We're looking at whether we can use this General Assembly next month for an event that would help to refocus in the after the 5th anniversary. And we're in this for the long haul. It's obviously not going to be resolved as quickly as any of us might wish. But we are absolutely firm friends of Bangladesh, firm allies in mitigating the effects of the crisis on the ground and advocating for creating the conditions that will enable the Rohingyas to go home.
Thank you. As demonstrated by the historic levels of flooding we have faced recently, it is clear that Bangladesh is exceptionally vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. During the last conference of Paris, COP26, President Alok Sharma announced £120 billion, as you mentioned in your speech, to support climate action in Bangladesh. From your knowledge, how will this fund be disseminated in Bangladesh to aid adaptation and mitigation initiatives?
Well, because it's a good amount of money, and I should say that this fund, because we have a major commitment to climate finance globally, although we've had to adjust our overall development portfolio to reflect changing economic circumstances. This commitment remains a strong one. And it'll be focused on adaptation, which is obviously a particular strength. There's some remarkable examples in Bangladesh of adaptation and the success of adaptation. And there is now a new global centre for adaptation, which has an office here in Dhaka. So we're working with the GCA, and we will be ensuring that Bangladeshi best practice on adaptation, on typhoon preparedness, all of those things is picked up. We'll be working on mitigation. So one of the very welcome things at COP26 in Glasgow last year was Bangladeshi announcements away from a high coal future. So although Bangladesh is not a major emitter, this helps to ensure that that will remain the case. So we very much welcome that mitigation approach. It'll be working on biodiversity. Bangladesh is a very biodiverse country. Some globally significant places like the Sundarbans, like the Chittagong Hill Tract, so we'll be working on biodiversity and ensuring that those places remain protected, but also in the context of a country that is developing quickly. And we'll be working with young people, there's an educational strand. And there is also a strand which is around improving solid waste management, because clearly handling of rubbish is a problem everywhere in the world, but I think, in Bangladesh there is clearly, in some places there is still a major problem with handling solid waste. And actually, there are some good solutions. I was in Narayanganj a couple of weeks ago, and there is really good work that is being done by the government of the city of Narayanganj under Mayor Ivy, who is a very impressive leader in this field, partnering with Unilever, a major British company, to make sure that solid waste, particularly plastic, which is so damaging in the environment, is collected, handled and recycled. And it means working right from the pickers on the ground. I met some pickers, I went to the rubbish dump, I've sort of seen it in action. It's very interesting. It's how you can build the right incentives to people to collect and recycle and repurpose plastic, as well, of course, as trying to put less plastic into the environment in the first place. So it's a sort of multi-dimensional effort which we will be continuing to support.
Robert, the task of suppressing hate speech and ensuring freedom of speech is understandably quite nuanced. Public discourse among the intelligentsia of Bangladesh regarding this tends to point out draconian measures taken by the government in order to curb criticism. Do you think Bangladesh can take any lessons from the United Kingdom in regards to forming policy around the free speech on public internet platforms?
Yeah, I mean, these are difficult issues. These are difficult issues everywhere. What I would say, I think, is that we do have some concerns about the specific way in which the Digital Security Act operates. And I was pleased to hear that there were productive discussions between the Honourable Law Minister, who I know well and with whom I've discussed this issue on many occasions, and High Commissioner Bachelet when she was here. And we are supporting our colleagues in the EU and the UN who are working with the Honourable Law Minister to try and make sure that the balance in the way that the DSA operates and is implemented is slightly more tilted in favour of ensuring that it's not open to misuse to crack down on free speech. I know there are some Centre for Governance studies, publications, including one outside, which I noticed on my way in, which is very interesting. I've read it. It's a very interesting publication about how the effects of the DSA can be sometimes seen to be disproportionate in terms of providing the opportunity for political opponents to crack down on free speech. So I think there is scope to change the way in which the law is operated, and I was pleased, as I said, to hear that that was part of the discussion between the Honourable High Commissioner and the Honourable Law Minister.
Thank you. Are there any specific initiatives from the British High Commission in Dhaka directly advocating for women's empowerment in Bangladesh?
Yes, well, we know women's empowerment, I think, is very important, and one of the consistent themes of our development, and as I said, our development here is evolving as economic circumstances change and as Bangladesh graduates from being a least developed country to a middle-income country. But one of the themes that remains very strong here is girls' education, because all the evidence shows that one of the best things you can do in terms of spending money on development is increasing the proportion of girls who complete education, who have 12 years of quality education. So we are working closely with our friends and colleagues in the Bangladesh Ministry of Education and with the Honourable Education Minister who will be going to the Education Summit at the UN General Assembly next month. And I have seen for myself some of the remarkable work that is being done, particularly in partnership of its the best way to provide for society and for prosperity. I think that argument still remains extremely strong.
And from my side, my final question to you is that the election process is the only way that the general people of Bangladesh can exercise any form of political power. Unfortunately, Bangladesh has a history of controversial elections, undermining the democratic institutions. Will the United Kingdom consider sending independent observers to monitor the upcoming elections process and ensure that proper democratic processes are being upheld?
Well, I mean, it's not for foreigners to dictate how elections should happen in a sovereign country like Bangladesh. It's for the election commission, the parties, the government, the institutions to work together. As I said, I think there are things that I would identify as important for a free and fair election. I think an free and open debate before the election, the ability of parties to meet, to gather, to discuss openly, to debate, those things I think are very important. I think the actual casting of the vote is very important. The counting of the vote is important, and the acceptance of the result. Those are the four things that seem to me to be most important. And it's really, obviously, for the people of Bangladesh to decide how to deliver what the Constitution provides for here, which is a democratic election. And I went along with some of my ambassadorial colleagues a couple of months ago to see the head of the Election Commission, and I think he is very conscious of the scale of the task that he has been handed, and we will certainly be looking forward to further discussion with him. But I think it's about the parties themselves engaging constructively. And as I said, it's for Bangladeshis to decide how best to deliver the requirements of the Constitution and the opportunity that the Constitution presents for a free and fair election. So we will be strong supporters of that. As far as observers are concerned,
I'm a retired soldier. Actually, I was commandant National Defence College when I retired. My question is very straightforward. In the Western world, you often use the term rule-based order. How do you define that? And could you identify the countries which are not following the rule-based order? The second part of my question would be, is Great Britain going to come back in the Indo-Pacific lock, stock and barrel east of Suez as you left in 1972?
I think Mr. Azim.
His Excellency, UK is the third largest our export destination country. We are exporting almost $4.5 billion. It was happened due to duty-free access to UK. So what do you think after 2026, after LDC graduation, is it covering your DCTS that scheme, new scheme, which your government announced? So we'll get this, we can enjoy safe duty-free access after 2026.
Ms. Preeti Chakraborty, thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. This is Preeti Chakraborty. I'm owner of a chairman of Universal Medical College and Hospital, and also an FBCCI as a board director. Just 1 minute, my comment. That is, once our colonial ruler now is the most important trade and development partner of Bangladesh. So thank you, Excellency. Excellency, I just want to know, we can see as an investment partner, UK has got enough investment in other countries comparison to Bangladesh. Why not such investment in Bangladesh? Because, we are following still now the curriculum and everything of UK in health and education, everywhere. And even we cannot see enough joint collaboration in health, education in Bangladesh compared to other countries. You have talked in your speech that you are doing enough collaboration in Bangladesh, but we cannot see the enough in here. And also, you have told that only Bizemia, that is our export in RMZ is going up, but we can feel that if you come up with Bangladesh, the skill development in health sector like nurses, doctors, we can have the skilled nurses in here, and also you can take in your country also. So I need all those questions from your side. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Microphone here, please. Mr. Iqtadar Ahmed. I'll try to come.
Thank you. I'm Iqtadar Ahmed. I'm a former judge and former Registrar General of the Supreme Court. My question is, Excellency, in your speech, you spoke about democracy, you spoke about rule of law, you spoke about fundamental rights, and also freedom of speech. Our procedural law is a code of criminal procedure. In respect of trial and investigation, this law is followed. This law in short form is called CRPC. It was enacted in 1898, and at that time this subcontinent including Bangladesh was under the British rule, and the same law is also now applicable in Bangladesh, Pakistan and India with minor amendments. Now section 61 of the CRPC says about the length of custody in police. Said section says that no person shall be in police custody beyond the period of 24 hours, excluding the period of journey, without special order of the magistrate. Then in our constitution also this article has been incorporated in article 33. Same thing has been laid down in our constitution. And Bangladesh is also signatory to UN Charter 1948, which is widely known as Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Section 9 of the Article 9 of the said charter says that no person shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention or exile. It is said and believed that other than police, some other agencies in Bangladesh, they are maintaining a secret prison, and in those secret prisons there are persons who are staying there for days after days, months after months or years after years. Since your country is the mother democracy, your country speaks of human rights, speaks of democracy, then what more role your country can play in respect of releasing those persons and in respect of shutting down those secret prisons which are unlawful and which are not permitted by our constitution and also by our law, other law of the country. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hakim Shanif.
Thank you. Well, there's some great questions there, and I think if I take the first question about rules-based international system, I think what I'd say is, however imperfect the rules-based international system may be, it's a lot better than the alternative, which basically is the law of the jungle, where the strong, I think in the words of Thucydides, the strong do what they wish, and the weak suffer what they must. Yes, Thucydides. So it's. And I think, if we look at how much better the world has been, if you take a broad perspective, the world has been a better ordered, more peaceful, more prosperous place since 1945 as a result of the institutions that were created in the aftermath of the Second World War. And I think what we're seeing now, there have of course been challenges. It hasn't been a tidy process, but viewed globally, that has been a success. And I think what we are seeing now is a very deliberate challenge, in particular by Russia, where there isn't even a pretense that there is a legal basis for this war. It's a war based on a sort of ethno-nationalist, as far as one can see, on a sort of ethno-nationalist fantasy. And it is resulting in appalling suffering in Ukraine, in wider Europe, and also in Russia itself, where Russian soldiers are being killed because of what their president has decided to do. And it's worth noting there has been the exit of huge numbers of skilled and talented Russians who recognise that Russia is not a country in which they want to live anymore, because it's now one of the most repressive societies in the world. So I think we are seeing very strong challenges to the rules-based international system, but the rules-based international system is still better. As Churchill said about democracy, it's the worst system except for all the others that have been tried from time to time. And I think for all of us, this moment of challenge is one where it's even more important to double down and support the rules-based international system, because if we don't, then we can see we will not be able to continue to live effectively together as a sort of human society, but also we won't be able to meet some of the very visible challenges which affect all of us, whether it's climate, pandemics, all of those things. So I think, we as the UK remain passionately committed to the rules-based international system, even though, or in fact even particularly because that system is under such very direct challenge at the moment. And that challenge is very, very visible in a really shocking way. To take your second question, we won't be coming back in the way that we were before 1972. We won't have, part of my childhood was spent in a naval base in Singapore, so I'm very conscious that we used to be here. But what we will be doing is reinforcing a series of modern partnerships with the countries of the Indo-Pacific region. And that will be on trade, on defence, on working together on common challenges, including climate, on investment. And it's a recognition in our integrated review that this is the part of the world, the Indo-Pacific region, is where most of the economic growth, and it's fair to say some of the political challenges and the answers to some of the global challenges is going to be found in the next sort of half century. So it won't be, as it was in the 60s, 50s, 60s, but it will be a very visible reinforcement of what is already, as I said in my speech, and I think it's true, the most organised and coherent approach by any European country to this part of the world. And there will definitely be a defence component to that, and as I said, I was very pleased that we were able to welcome the Royal Navy to Chittagong for the first time for 13 years. We have a developing defence relationship overseen by our defence dialogue, which is to our mutual benefit, and we will continue to reinforce that. But it's not just linked to security and defence, it's a wider range of issues as well. On the second point about the new developing countries trading scheme, as I said, I think Bangladesh is actually uniquely well placed for this because Bangladesh already has a very well developed trading and export relationship with the UK, and I think what this provides is a framework within which that relationship will continue after graduation, because we had decided that for 3 years after 2026 we were going to continue duty-free, quota-free access, and what this does is to broaden it beyond Bangladesh, but also broadens it in terms of time. So I think it is a really good offer by the UK to the developing world, but which Bangladesh is unusually well placed to benefit from, and I'm very pleased to see that. What I would say, I do hope as High Commissioner that we can make it a more balanced trading relationship, because at the moment we import from Bangladesh, as was said, about $4.5 billion a year, and we export to Bangladesh just over a tenth of that. So it would be very good as Bangladesh becomes more prosperous if Bangladesh is able to buy more high-quality British goods and services to make it a more balanced trading relationship. So we are focused on trying to improve export opportunities here in Bangladesh, and I think market access is a challenge, which is something that we're addressing in our trade dialogue. But I think the developing countries trading scheme as a whole provides a tremendous opportunity, which I hope Bangladeshi companies and exporters will be leaning into. On the issue around, Priti, your question about the Trade and Development Partnership and investment, what we see, particularly in education and healthcare and financial services, is a lot of interest because British investors see a market which is already very large. Bangladesh is the 8th largest country in the world by population, is growing. They see 2 decades of very strong economic growth. And they see a market which in many ways is quite underserved by international companies, and they're very interested. I would say that I think what is really needed now is to convert the lived experience of potential British international investors here into a more positive engagement with the regulators, the bureaucracy, the whole range of things that a company needs to engage with to actually establish a presence here on the ground. And there are, of course, as I said, some very good successful examples that they can look to. But I think improving that experience for new investors who can, of course, go anywhere else in the world they want is an important next step in terms of what BEDA and the government should be doing to try and raise the amount of FDI here, which is will be important to continuing growth here over the next decade. I think on skills development and nurses, yes, we're very keen to invest in this, and there are some good examples of where we're doing it, and we've done it through our development programme. We've helped to develop midwifery here as an important profession. So I think there is lots of scope, both in the development field, but also I think potentially in terms of sort of private sector investment. There is a skills shortage in the UK at the moment, and I think it would be very good if skilled Bangladeshis can be going to the UK, as they already are, but if we can increase the range of fields where we see skilled Bangladeshis helping to alleviate the skills shortages in the UK. So we are keen for that to happen. But it is obviously important that people have qualifications that demonstrate that they are able to do the jobs and have the English, particularly the language skills that are needed to contribute in the UK. But I think this is definitely a conversation that we should be continuing and is happening in all sorts of fields already, and particularly, as you mentioned, nursing and social care. Those are sectors where there are skills shortages and where we are interested in improving the ability of people to go to the UK and work in those fields, without, of course, undermining the ability of health professionals to deliver health here in Bangladesh. So there is a balance that needs to be struck. And then finally, very interesting to have your comments on freedom of speech. I mean, and of course it is interesting how much of the legal framework here still, 75 years after our departure, remains based on a UK heritage. I mean, I think on your comments about the allegations around secret prisons, I think the best comment was the one that was made by Michelle Bachelet when she was here, who said that when she was president of Chile, which of course had quite a troubled human rights history itself, she said that her response as president when an allegation was made was to investigate it in an open and transparent way, because she said, what if it's true, was the thing that she said, you know, if someone makes an allegation like the one that you referred to, what if it's true? Well, if it's true, it's clearly something that should not be happening. And her suggestion, and I think she said this in her public remarks here when she was here last week, is to encourage open, transparent, credible investigation of those of allegations, including the ones that you mentioned. And that seems to me to be the best way in which these things can be dealt with.
Thank you. Second round. I'll try to come to everyone. Mashood, please.
This is Mashood Shakil, Senior Reporter of Channel I, Chevening Fellow, 2019. The question, you know, I am a journalist, so I have to be trendy about the issues. You know, you the people are the ambassadors of European and others in England. You today, your inaugural speech, you also addressed the issues. You are emphasized on a free, fair, credible and transparent elections. And to have this election, you are talking about the debate, a very good debate, very dialogue, participating dialogue between Awami League and BNP and with others parties also. So why are you so adamant about free, fair, credible elections in these times, upcoming, when election is coming very near? And in 2014 and 2028, they have two elections. 18. There are two elections, and the BNP, the one of the oppositions, are not participating in these elections. But you, the people, work with this government, and you are appraising the work the government have done in this last 10 years. And we know very well, and it's well known that in 2007, when the 1/11 happened, you, the people, you, the ambassadors, are working seriously to have the change. And we know very well, one of the ambassadors is know that letter, mutinies have happened, and give it to the then army chief. We still not know what is the latter and how it come and where to come, but most of the people know this. The 1/11 happened because of this move of the ambassadors and other people who are working here as a development partners or as an ambassador. So why are you so adamant of a free, fair, credible elections in this time, 2009, again the 2023, if there is no elections like 2014 and 2021, and you, the people, are uprising the government for their work. If again another elections like 2014 and 2018, if there are any problems with you? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sheikh Shohidul Islam, please, the microphone. Microphone, please. Please introduce yourself. As we all know that you are a former minister and...
My name is Sheikh Shohidul Islam. I am former education minister of this country and also now the general secretary of a political party named Jatiyo Party. My question is, I am turning towards international politics. In your address, you have mentioned that you are arming Ukraine, providing military support to them, and you condemn Russian invasion. Of course, we also condemn Russian invasion. Don't you think that your military aid to a party of this conflict will escalate the war? And what are UK is doing to stop this war?
It's a good question. I wanted to
Next, thank you. Professor Mahbubur Rahman from North South University. Yeah, please.
Thank you. I teach political science. Excellency, on 25th of August, we will have 5th anniversary of latest Rohingya exodus. We don't know how many anniversaries we may have to see before the Rohingyas are taken back to their country of origin. My question to you, very recently we saw in the media that Bangladesh requested United Kingdom to resettle 100,000 Rohingyas. I don't know how credible this report is, whether it has been officially placed, and what is the response of the United Kingdom. Thank you very much.
Ambassador Mohammad Shafillah, frontline, please. Microphone here. Ambassador Shafillah.
Thank you. High Commissioner Dixon, actually, I have two many things to ask and share. My first thought is to share with you the British Council extension program. Because you see, we are, in our generation, we are benefited by British Council. So, but the level of education in Bangladesh is well known to you. I am very glad that you are considering to have British higher education available to Bangladeshi people at doorstep. That means in Bangladesh, without going to UK. Good idea, and we support this move. Now the question is, who will get education in university if their foundation is so weak in English, in other languages? So I thought to share with you the extension of British Council program in various parts of Bangladesh, so that you can prepare the students at the school level and college level to come to the higher education. And that will also help us in our human resource development, because we are graduating to the next level of economic level in Bangladesh, from LDC to middle income group. So that is my thought with you, that whether there will be a program to have extension of your British Council programs throughout Bangladesh. Number two is this, the question of Myanmar and the Rohingya. Now, clearly it is, if you think Russia is aggressive power in Ukraine, and the same way Bangladesh think that Myanmar has done aggression to Bangladesh by sending about now 1,200,000 their people in Bangladesh, occupying our land and an island now. Now, Western countries have imposed sanctions on Russia for aggression on Ukraine. So why not UK take lead that Western countries impose sanctions on Myanmar? Wide-ranging sanction on Myanmar, so that they take the Rohingya in their country. Because you see, you are doing business, investment in Myanmar, all the Western countries, including USA. Only you have imposed sanctions on individuals, 1 or 2, 3 people. That would not help anything. And you also said that the refugee is now swelling in the world, and the amount of aid will shrink. So how can Bangladesh sustain 12 million population, 1,200,000 population in a country which is aspiring to be graduate to the next level of education? So we wish that you can take lead, because of the historic relations with you, that Western countries should impose sanction on Myanmar, so they cripple the economy, and then force them to take the refugee back. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. High Commissioner.
Thank you. Well, more challenging questions, so thank you very much for that. On the elections, to take that point, I wasn't here in 2007. I don't know exactly what happened. I can't comment on the letters. What I can do, though, is say that I think if you look ahead, as I said, I think the key to continued prosperity and growth for Bangladesh is going to be institutional quality. I think the ability of this country, like any country, to demonstrate that it has institutions which have the confidence of the people here and therefore of international investors. That is going to be the key to continued growth and success. And I think the most foundational point on institutional quality is elections. I think the ability of a government to show that it has, it's been elected by the people, and I think that is really important. If we look ahead to the next half decade, then I think a good election in 2023, lessons from this conflict, has been the extraordinary underperformance of the Russian army. They expected to win in 3 days, and 6 months later they're bogged down in an appalling attritional war, having committed appalling war crimes against the people of Ukraine. We look at what emerges when the Ukrainians recapture territory, and it's clear that the Russians are carrying out appalling massacres of innocent civilians. So there's a very, very clear, I think, moral dimension to this conflict, and we are, as a result, providing effective weapons and also training. We're acting as a training hub as the UK. So 11 other countries, I think I'm right in saying now, including Denmark, New Zealand, Sweden, are contributing to a training effort which is being run in the UK to enable the Ukrainians to generate the skilled military manpower that they need to continue to defend their country from this barbaric invasion. And, clearly we all wish this hadn't happened. It seems to me to be profoundly against Russia's interests as well as everybody else's that they've launched this war. But because they have, I don't think we have any alternative to enabling Ukraine to defend itself, while trying to do so in a way that doesn't create a wider conflict. And of course, one of the things that has happened as a result of this war that you never would have expected is that both Finland and Sweden, staunch democracies with long traditions of neutrality, have decided that they should join the NATO alliance. So that has been actually the most immediate effect of Russia's aggression, has been to convince neutral countries in Europe that they need to join the Western alliance. So it's an extraordinary mistake of historic proportions, I think, that has been committed by Russia in launching this barbaric invasion of a neighbour. And I think we are entirely right to be reinforcing the ability of the neighbour to defend its people against this appalling invasion. And obviously what we would hope is that the Russians will end the conflict as soon as possible, because that's the best way to finish it, for the Russians to withdraw from Ukraine and start mending the damage that they've done. But that obviously is a question for the Russian ambassador and not for me, unfortunately. On the Rohingyas, I totally take the point about the 5th anniversary. And I mentioned this in my speech. It's going to be, I hope, a big part of what we do at the UN General Assembly next month. We are absolutely staunch supporters of Bangladesh. We're staunch supporters of the right of the Rohingyas to return home as soon as they can do so in a way that is legal, safe, dignified and voluntary. And we are strong supporters of the effort to keep the Rohingyas in decent conditions while they're in Bangladesh with financial support, and we're strong political supporters of trying to keep pressure on the government in Myanmar. And just picking up the question that was asked at the end about sanctions, we have already imposed sanctions on the Tatmadaw, on the leaders of the Myanmar junta, and we're always looking for ways in which we can impose further sanctions on them. And there is also a mistake. I'd just like to correct one mistake that is sometimes made. The actual UK investment in Myanmar over the last year has been $2 million, so it's tiny in the overall scheme of things. There was a misunderstanding of $2.5 billion of investment in Myanmar that we think came from a third country through the British Virgin Islands. So that large investment was nothing to do with the UK. It was using a UK offshore territory as a vector for investment. But we have very strong discouragement.
Just $2 million.
It was we have invested, British interests have invested $2 million, so a tiny, tiny amount in Myanmar over the last year. We do not think Myanmar is a desirable destination at the moment for commercial investment. It's bad morally, but it's also, it's not a good place to invest because it's a government in chaos and a country suffering an acute security crisis. And there was a suggestion that there had been large UK investment, and that is not true. What we saw was large investment from a third country which came through a UK offshore territory into Myanmar. So that is not a British investment, and that is not something that we would encourage. But just to say, on the Rohingyas, we're strong supporters of Bangladesh, we're strong supporters of the Rohingyas and their right to return, and we're strong supporters of keeping the Rohingyas in decent conditions in Bangladesh while they have to remain. Is English language training, English language teaching, and English language examination, because if you've learned English, you then need to demonstrate that you've learned it in order to be internationally competitive. And so the British Council have a very big IELTS program here, which they operate here in Dhaka with their offices in Fuller Road, but also with offices in Chittagong and in Sylhet. So the British Council is a really important part. It operates independently, but it's an important part of the overall British investment and partnership in Bangladesh, and I really value what they do culturally and in terms of education and particularly English language teaching. It's very important.
Mr. Ahmed Hussain, Organizing Secretary, Bangladesh Awami League.
I'm lucky one to meet this session and to meet Honorable Robert Dixon, Your Excellency. And I hailed you, I heard you, and you emphasized the issue of Rohingya. And you came forward to resolve the issue. It is not issue of Bangladesh, it is now a global issue. That is why I appreciate you, I appreciate all international community. We are sitting here, all people, politicians, many professionals, diplomats. It's a good session. It's a mini parliament. It is called democracy. I'm organizing secretary of ruling party, Awami League, led by our beloved Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. But my right hand, another organizing secretary of BNP. We are sitting together. It is called democracy. It is called democracy. We need and expect such type of atmosphere. But I want to know, Mr. Robert Dixon, what is your comment about the Padma Bridge that is built by Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina? World Bank withdrew allotment money. Then our beloved leader Sheikh Hasina took this challenge to build Padma Bridge that is built now. It is a part of history. What is your comment and opinion about this? One question. Second question, what is the relation of democracy and communalism? Is there brothers related? Is there a friendly relation? Secondly, what is the relation between democracy and terrorism? Is there any friendly or brotherly relations? Only two questions I have asked you. I need proper answer from you. We know UK is a mother of democracy. We learned democracy from you people. You are the biggest country, biggest nation economically. But in Bangladesh is the biggest in population, but not like you. Only 6 crore people of you, but we have 16 crore people. Only. You are the biggest one of the world. We look you, we see you, we learn from you, and we see you when will come forward to help us. We are facing crisis of economically now, Bangladesh. Because what is your opinion about our food security? Is it enough for our nation? Do you think so? Do you think the food security is enough, Bangladesh? And what is your opinion of our reserve money? Are you going to be Sri Lanka? Bangladesh will be Sri Lanka. Do you think so? Some people are telling that we are going to be Sri Lanka, but we think it is not true. It is not true. It is like propaganda. So we are very optimistic. We are going ahead with the support of you. If you come forward to invest us, we must be able to overcome any crisis. We are with you. You are my friend. You is my friend. I recollect the day and moment. And that is why I like to say you, it's a month of mourning. We are facing the days of mourning. It's a month of tragedy. Our father of nation, architect of independent Bangladesh, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who was killed brutally with his family members, excluding 2, Honorable Prime Minister and younger sister Sheikh Rehana. You know, younger sister daughter of Sheikh Rehana, Tulip, is now a member of Parliament, House of Commons. So we are facing the days, August Mass, with very, very faint. Because do you think, we do not find anyone in your country. The one prime minister is killed brutally in Britain. No one. It is your history. We follow history. And like you, we like to build a history of Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hussain. Shamau Bhai, the Organizing Secretary of Bangladesh Nationalist Party.
Thank you. It's good to know that at least democracy is prevailing in this under CGS and Friedrich-Ebert leadership. Good morning to all. Thank you for CGS and Friedrich-Ebert to organize this event. I have 3 specific questions, or 4 maybe. First of all, His Excellency, UK and Bangladesh has long relationship since 1971, and UK has been one of the first countries to recognize Bangladesh as a sovereign country. And in taking that into account, I believe that Bangladesh and UK have been like a true friend to Bangladesh in terms of trade, in terms of prevailing democracy, in terms of economic growth and everything else. Being said that, what under the current circumstances, post-COVID situation and the Ukraine-Russia war going on, what kind of challenges do you see in Bangladesh economy? Because we see we are growing, but we see at the same time we see a lot of corruption, we see a lot of challenges because we see the recent price hike on every commodity and the energy sector and electricity. So what challenges do you think in our economy we have that can affect the future sustainable growth? As a very one of the largest trade partner of Bangladesh, what challenges do you see? Number 2, democracy is essential, as you have mentioned, for any government to have a sustainable development. And recently, we have seen that 14 of our important ambassadors and friends have seen the Election Commission, and I would like to know that what kind of outcome, what are the challenges do you see? You have talked about 2023 election, and everybody, nationally and internationally, we want to see a free and fair election. But what challenges do you see after your conversation or your discussion with the Election Commission that can hamper that can be a barrier to a free and fair election in 2023? Number 2. Number 3 is you have talked about women empowerment. I just wanted to mention an important point is that after post-COVID, during COVID, our education system has been really hampered, especially in rural areas for girls. Data and reports have shown that a lot of girls have left the schools in the rural areas, and their families are not sending them back to schools, and they don't have and under the current economic pressure and they most likely they're not going to return to school. They'll probably get married and they're gonna they're gonna go to different maybe in working in garments industries and whatever, but they're not coming back to school. So what UK can do to help change that, or what are the steps Bangladesh government or the NGOs or whatever the NGOs are working can do to change that? That's the important thing, because you know that BNP has always been under Begum Khaleda Zia has made the education free for the small girls from first standard to high school, and it's very important that our girls get their education that they need. Number 4, and the last question, is that as far as human rights is concerned, it seems like present Bangladesh government is their statements a lot of time forces us to believe that they are in denial. So how do you see that? Forget proper investigation, but just blunt denial is also it will increase, I think, human rights violations. So how do you see that? Thank you.
Matab.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Excellency. I'm Mahatab, working for Center for Governance Studies. You know very well that every year a significant portion of people, Bangladeshi people, including the students, are going to United Kingdom. And for the last couple of years, the visa processing is being done in Delhi, which is to some extent time consuming and at the same time very costly as well. So being a good friend of British people and being a citizen of Bangladesh, I think we don't take much pride from it. So do you have any plan to reconsider the issue and make the visa processing for the Bangladeshi people more flexible for the time period? Thank you.
Sometimes it's insulting for Bangladeshi people. There is a perception. Ifat, please.
Hello, good morning. I work for Center for Governance Studies. My question was regarding the IELTS process. So we all know that the validity for taking the exam is only 2 years. My question here is, most of the universities want at least 6 months prior to the validity ends, your results of that time. So it makes it only 1.5 months. The score is valid for only 1.5 months. And we know that applying as a student in various countries takes a lot of time and toll and energy, and sometimes 1.5 months isn't enough. So my question here is, people don't necessarily forget English within 1.5 months, especially getting a score of 8 and 8.5. And the prices for taking the exams are getting costlier every year. So is there any solution to it? That is my question.
And I'll come to you. Professor Abdul Lutf Masum, Jahangirnagar University. Please.
Excellency, we know long tradition of British-Bangladesh relation. It is the legacy that we owe Westminster system of democracy. Also the system of governance. As am I an academic one, the question is academic. Do you find any development in context of good governance in Bangladesh in the last half of a century? Number one. Number two, whether Westminster democracy, I mean the democratic institutions of legislature, judiciary, and the bureaucracy are developing in accordance with the terms and conditions of development, I mean, in political terms, in political science, which you call political development. This is my question.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you again. Some really interesting questions. On the question about the Padma Bridge, I have to say I visited the Padma Bridge. Unfortunately, my daughter got married the same day as the Padma Bridge was opened. So I had to be in Edinburgh at my, well, I was delighted, of course, to be in Edinburgh at my daughter's wedding. I had to miss the opening of the Padma Bridge. I have visited it on several occasions. I think it's incredibly impressive. I mean, as a sort of engineering achievement, it's remarkable. And I do think it's going to have, already is having, an incredible effect on the sort of economic geography of Bangladesh, because I mean it brings Mongla port closer to Dhaka than Chittagong, and I think it opens up amazing opportunities in southwest Bangladesh, which traditionally have been a bit excluded by the river from the sort of economic heartland around Dhaka. So I think it's going to have an impact. I mean, we'll have to look again in a decade's time, but I think it's going to have a huge impact. And just it brings Barishal, that whole area, much closer to Dhaka. And we haven't even really begun to see the impact. It's amazing, and it's the fact that it's being so heavily used already, I think, is a sign of how important it is as a sort of artery of development in Bangladesh. And as I said, I mean, when you see it, the scale is remarkable. In terms of your other question with the other ambassadors, we had a very interesting discussion with the election commissioner. And I think what I would say is actually there have been some good recent examples in local elections of elections in Narayanganj and Comilla, where there were problems, but there were basically what seemed to us to be relatively sort of fair and credible elections were delivered at the local level with good participation by elements of the parties. And I think that is a sign that this can happen, and we very much hope that the lessons that were learned in those local elections will be reflected in the elections that are delivered at national level at the end of next year. On your question about girls' education, I mean, yes, it's a global problem. The pandemic had a terrible impact on education all over the world, and particularly in developing countries. And that is why we have a major focus working with UNICEF and others, and working with the Ministry of Education and with the Ministry of Primary Education on trying to enable girls to come back to school. It is a problem. It's a problem everywhere. It's a problem here. And we are working with the government on solutions to those problems. Because, as I said, we think that one of the best development interventions anyone can make is 12 years, and that it would be for us to process visas in a smaller hub here in Bangladesh. And it doesn't affect at all the quality of the decision making, but what it means is that we can provide visas more cheaply than we otherwise would be able to do. And I suspect actually the direction of travel is that we may well see all of our visa processing done in the UK. It's so easy now to do these things online. I suspect that we will be making changes that will result in more visa processing and consideration being done at our base in the UK rather than being done remotely. But I would absolutely say two things to this audience. The first is that we are working very hard to overcome the short-term problems that we've had with our visa processing times. But secondly, as I said, I mean, the quality of visa processing is not affected at all by where it's done. And we are very committed to providing a high-quality visa.
Mohammed Ibrahim.
Excellency, good morning. I was one of the first to arrive in the hall today at 9:30, not only because of attraction to listen to you, but also because I didn't miss my breakfast at home.
Please introduce yourself.
Introducing myself, sir, I am a former soldier, retired Major General. I am a freedom fighter about the War of Liberation and a guarantee award holder, Bir Pratik. And something that might interest you, a graduate of the Royal Staff College located at Camberley, no more present there. That is in the years 1982 and 83. I've retired 27 years ago, having served 27 years. So it's now 54 years that I wore in uniform. And to just place in the context, one more gentleman of UK training from the Britannian Naval Training Academy, Dartmouth, Lieutenant Commander Faisal Mehdi is also here. He also raised his hand to ask a question. Chances are he will not get a chance. So I thought, let me introduce him. I am a chairman of Bangladesh Kollan Party. It's a political party. Kollan means welfare. It is a registered party. When you refer to two major parties and their representatives present here.
Now the question, please.
Yes, sir. Two major political parties organizing secretary were present here. The third political party was Mr. Shahidul Islam, who had asked you a question. And the fourth one is Kollan Party, Sayyid Mohammed Ibrahim. They are like banyan trees and we are like eucalyptus trees. Head high in the sky, standing alone and to be seen by everyone. The question have already been asked that I wanted to. So I will modify them and put it like this. One of the question is about the Rohingyas. The other is about your interaction with the political world in this country, or the political environment in the country. About Rohingya, Your Excellency, I can speak, understand Rohingya fully, because I belong to the district of Chittagong, visited Burma 4 times. Point, you have said repeatedly that you are with the problem, you are beside Bangladesh, providing all support, mental, physical, financial, everything. One point has been missed. It cannot be solved by UK alone. It cannot be solved by Bangladesh alone. Would you mind discussing and throwing some light about how to solve it internationally? I may be right, I may be wrong, but there were international interest or big power interest in organizing the departure of the Rohingya from Myanmar. In other words, it was not a only natural calamity, it was not an only military calamity that befell. There were diplomatic impetus. The blue waters beside the coast of Myanmar are very important, as much important as the blue waters of Bay of Bengal next to the coast of Chittagong in Bangladesh. So how would you interact or be with Bangladesh in organizing international support. The second and the last question is, you walk a very tightrope when you involve yourself with local Bangladeshi institutions and the political environment. We read in the media or heard from the media that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Bangladesh has sent you a communication requesting you to follow the Geneva Convention. The perception of the people are, you are friendly to Bangladesh. The people of UK are friendly to Bangladesh. But you represent the government of UK. How do you meet the aspirations of the people of this country? We are looking forward to a better political environment, stronger political institutions. How would you contribute without infringing upon the domains of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? That interests us as a political worker, as a citizen, as a freedom fighter. Thank you very much, Excellency, from General Ibrahim.
Thank you. Mahmoud Habiba. Yeah.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you very much to Zilur Rahman Bhai. My thanks to CGS and FES. His Excellency, I'm truly honored to be a part of this discussion. UK has been...
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Mahmouda Habiba. I am Joint Secretary of Bangladesh Jatiyatawadi Krishak Dal, which is Bangladesh Nationalist Agriculturists Party. Assistant organization of BNP, Bangladesh Nationalist Party. So actually I'm not speaking on behalf of any party right here. Since UK has been one of the largest development partner of Bangladesh since the birth of the country. You know, there is a wonderful program has been run in Bangladesh, like Democracy International, which was funded by both UK and USA. So it was actually functional. Your part was actually there till March 2022. So it is not really a question. Let me just make. I'm trying to make a statement that. This very program is not very prominent one. Democracy International, they work on women empowerment in a different way, in politics, in good governance, and in peace and other issues. And this very program is so elaborated, and it is throughout Bangladesh, especially remote area, the female who are doing politics. This program actually helped them survive, backed them up. And as per our Election Commission RPO 2009, there was a direction to all political parties, at least to include 33% of female everywhere in the party and even in the election. And right at this year, this direction was valid till 2020. So a new proposal has been made, which is awaiting to become law. And the new proposal that 10 more years. Election Commission is giving 10 more years to the political parties to make it mandatory or the participation of females in politics. So as I have seen Democracy International and other development partners to press, actually to create a pressure on government or on Election Commission to, in Bangladesh, a country like Bangladesh, where there is a religious domination and other dominating factors are there. Politics is not very easy, so we always need support from abroad, and which we received. So my question is, since UK aid is no more with Democracy International, are you, as an independent body or as British High Commission, can you do something? So, it's like 10 years extension, 10 years extension, 10-year extension. This will go on. It is such a system. It has to be done right now or never. Like Shama Obaid or me or the other female politicians are present here. We are very lucky to be here in front of you, because we are, being here is not easy. Being a organizing secretary such as Shama Obaid is not easy. She has to be at least double competent than the male contestant, I must assure you that. And so for the other ladies as well. So this is not only a concern, this is a passive work, but it creates a huge effect, because if you need a sustainable development of the country, you need to be, women need to be there at the front page, at least with a significant number, which can create a pressure. Thank you very much. This was my question.
Thank you. Ms. Zakia Sultan, a Member of Parliament from Awami League. Zakia Parveen, yeah, sorry.
Thank you. When we start this meeting, there was a sweet morning, but now we are in the middle part of day. But our national...
As long as Robert is not tired, we can continue.
Our national father of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, I respect him, and all of them who killed 1975 this August month. I have one question and different question. This is, your government your government help our students, but he not give our not only our whole world Bangladesh whole world and Bangladesh students, and they are not, your government does not give their PR. That PR. My daughter...
permanent residency, I think. She's talking about permanent residency. Yeah.
My daughter is reading Canada. When I said to him, I said that you go to England. But she asked me why I go to England. They not give PR me.
So why
that's
not?
why.
Why not?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yes,
Why
thank
not?
you. Thanks to all.
Thank you. Thank you. Barrister Sarwar Hussain, please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. The barrage of questions, at last I have got it. My question is, my name is Sarwar Hussain. I'm a Lincoln barrister and practicing lawyer of Supreme Court of Bangladesh. The money laundering is a global problem. We see from Bangladesh, the money belong to the people has been laundered to Canada, USA, Dubai, Malaysia, and many other countries, including the country where I have taken education, UK. In social media, we find many people from Bangladesh living a lavish life in UK. We don't have any problem if they have taken the legal money, but in social media, we see many people, including one of the intelligence head, purchased a palatial house in West London. My question is, whether you follow these news in social media, and what you do if this is the illegal money. Money laundering means plundering the money from the country. Whether you are doing anything to prevent that, whether you conduct an inquiry to publish that report to the people, and whether you take punitive action so that people's money are not taken away to your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Advocate Nurjahan Begum Mukta, former Member of Parliament, Bangladesh Awami League. Former Member of Parliament, Bangladesh Awami League, Advocate Nurjahan Begum Mukta.
Hello, good afternoon everyone. Thanks Mr. High Commissioner for your valuable speech, and I was eagerly for this moment. Everybody is tired, I think, but I think all are very, very hopeful discussion we heard. Actually, I have 3 questions to you, Mr. High Commissioner. Bangladesh is developing day by day, and it's developing rapidly. Our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is trying her best. Now, I have 3 questions to you. The United Kingdom is the biggest source of Bangladesh's export income after Germany. Among European countries being listed as a least developed country, Bangladesh is getting duty-free export facilities to European Union countries. The United Kingdom was also providing this benefit under the EU even if Brexit takes effect. Nothing will change. It will no longer be effective if Bangladesh leaves the list of least developed countries in 2024. There are 3 questions in this regard. First, will the UK retain duty-free benefits after 2024? Second, the UE has a GSP Plus facilitating after 2027. Will Bangladesh get it? And thirdly, will the UK have a scheme like GSP Plus in 2027? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert.
Right, thank you very much. So again, interesting questions. I mean, on the Rohingyas, coming to the first series of questions, I mean, I think it's fair to say we work very hard as pen holder in the Security Council on Myanmar and on the Rohingyas to try to maintain international pressure on the Myanmar government to do what they should do, which is to enable the refugees to return in conditions that are safe, dignified and voluntary. I have to say the Security Council is pretty disunited at the moment, to put it very mildly. I mean, for obvious reasons, the Security Council is split between 2 of its permanent members and the other 3 of its permanent members, and that doesn't make it easy. But nonetheless, you know, I think what's important, as I said in my speech, is that we don't let this become a forgotten crisis. So even though it's not clear at the moment how long it will take, we are absolutely committed to continuing to ensure that there is international focus on this. And I do think, in a way, when you look at who is supporting Bangladesh in this space and who is providing the funds to keep the Rohingyas in reasonably humane conditions while they're here, it's usually the same list of countries. You know, it's broadly speaking, it's the large Western donors, and there are other countries who I think could perhaps play a bigger role in trying to find a solution to the crisis than they are at the moment. They may be doing things, and they may be doing things behind the scenes, but I think it's a question that you could address to other ambassadors as well as to the representatives of some of the Western countries, who I think are genuinely, both on the political side and particularly on the humanitarian side, doing everything that we can. On your question about politics here, I mean, of course, it's always a delicate balance. It's actually the Vienna Convention, not the Geneva Convention, that governs diplomatic representatives. But I think, you know, we, as diplomatic representatives, you know, we have we are able to talk to everyone. You know, we talk, and my principle here is I'll talk to any legitimate political actor here. I like to talk to as wide a range of people as possible, whatever sort of party or affiliation or religion or anything else they may have. I think that's how, as a diplomat, you understand your host country. And I think, you know, I have a right and a responsibility to represent the views of my government, which are firmly in favour of democracy, free trade, human rights, all of those things. So putting that together, it means talking to as wide a range of people as I can reach in Bangladesh, and it's great to have the opportunity to talk to a wide range of people this morning. I'm very encouraged, actually, to see what a wide range of political parties are represented at this morning's meeting. I think that's very encouraging. And as I said, I mean, all I've really been doing this morning and at every other occasion like this is explaining, you know, the views that we have about the best way for things to be organised, which is around, as I said, democracy, human rights, free speech, all of those basic founding principles. On the second point that was asked about programming, it's a very good point, and I've been very pleased that we've been able to support through Democracy International. That programme, it is true, is coming to an end, but we are in the process of putting together a significant new programme that will operate in the same space. I don't know whether it'll necessarily have the same partners or exactly the same operations, but we do think that support for democracy and open societies is important, and we are working with colleagues to put together a new programme in this space, because I think, as High Commissioner, it's really a crucial part of what we do here, and I'm very pleased to hear about the impact of our previous programming, and we will be picking that up in our new programming, but I can't yet say exactly who will be involved and how it'll work, but it is a space that I'm very keen that we should work in, and we will continue to do that. On the question about students and staying for longer. We have changed this because students studying in the UK now have the right to stay for 2 years of postgraduate experience. And what you need basically to qualify for longer term residency in the UK is 5 years what I would say is that the 2 years gives people the opportunity to establish the basis that they need to extend for a longer time. And I think if students view their initial right as a graduate is to stay for 2 years, but there are lots of routes by which that 2 years can be extended. And so I think what we have done is actually provide people with what I would describe as a foothold, which gives them plenty of opportunities then to your premise that this is something where more work is needed. And then finally, on the question about, there was a question about, about what we were going to do in terms of providing longer term access to our market. Well, actually, I think this is really what our developing countries trading scheme is all about, is providing guaranteed access to a wide range of developing countries, including Bangladesh, for the longer term. So, as I was saying, Bangladesh, because it has already a very well-developed export relationship with the UK, is actually better placed than almost any other country to take advantage of the developing countries trading scheme. So I'm very pleased that we were able to announce it last week, and I think it really does create exciting opportunities for the whole developing world, but particularly because of the nature of the existing relationship for Bangladesh. So it's a real step forward.
So thank you. This is the final round. Lieutenant Commander, please. Make it very short, please.
Just would like to highlight 2 things about me. One is I had the opportunity to be trained by the Royal Navy back in 97-98. So it's been 25 years and I'm carrying it forward. I'm a retired Lieutenant Commander working in the corporate service on compliance and governance for last 10 years. And presently also I am delivering 2 of the British services, professional education services in the Bangladesh market. One is NIBOSH, National Education Board Occupational Health and Safety, a government organization. I am delivering their training services in Bangladesh. The other one is Chartered Quality Institute. I am delivering their training services in Bangladesh. My questions, I have 2 questions. One is about the scholarship. So basically, as I learned back in 1997, that all Commonwealth countries are by rotation given a scholarship. And I was one of the lucky candidates to avail that opportunity in the Royal Navy. But you see, I mean, at present you have 500,000 Bangladesh originated British citizens in UK. It's almost 1% of your population. And due to their connections, many people are also going to UK. Again, if you consider that about the foreign origin British citizens in UK, we are in the top 3 of your country. So out of 56 Commonwealth countries, Bangladesh deserves a preferential treatment in allocating scholarships. So if you consider this from your point of view in terms of higher education, professional training, offering better scholarships, exchange programs for the education sector, I think that will build up more rapport between UK and Bangladesh. This is my first question or submission. And the second question is regarding the regional head offices. You have referred to the British, UK is the second largest investment country in Bangladesh. You have named few, Standard Chartered Bank, HSBC Bank, British American Tobacco. But again, for all these cases, the regional head office is in India. My personal proponent is if these are directly under the British head office, then Bangladesh will prosper faster. Bangladesh can give you better dividend. So please consider making everything direct from UK to Bangladesh. Going through Delhi is always a challenge for us. That's my personal opinion. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Professor Mainul Islam from Dhaka University. Microphone, please.
So thank you very much. You know, it took 2 hours time to come from Dhaka University to hear your wonderful speech. So first I would like to congratulate, but my name is, as mentioned by the Mr. Jillur, my name is Mohammad Mainul Islam. I work in Department of Population Sciences. So my questions related to population issues, particularly the displaced population regarding the Myanmar national. Bangladesh government regarded them not as a refugee. They treated them as FDMN, that means forcefully displaced Myanmar national. If you think about today's newspaper, also I did also several research work about these Rohingya refugee people or displaced population. If you think that every year 30 to 40,000 newborn babies are going there. So if this continue for another 5 years, another 7 years, the number of the proportion of the population of the Rohingya displaced population much higher, and the density of those areas will be much more critical, and social unrest will be happening there. So I think international communities are not considering this issue more importantly than any other aspect. So at this moment, my humble submissions to you, I think you have to think about strategic funding thinking, not only increase few funding. The funding Bangladesh getting from the international communities is the receipt funding and the required funding. There is a huge differences. But I got to know from your speech that UK is increasing number of funding. That's a good thing. But strategic funding is needed, particularly focusing on reproductive health, like, you know, using contraceptions. The Rohingya refugees people are not interested to take using contraceptions and other aspects. So this is a critical concern regarding these issues. So I think strategic funding from that perspective. Another one perspective, like from demographic perspective, I think Bangladesh is facing another 15 years, very critical time for Bangladesh to achieve the first demographic dividend. So in that context, I think UK, the lesson, because you have 18.5% of your total population is more elderly, that's 65 plus. So thinking about the future demography and Bangladesh, we want to make much more collaborative research work so that our young people, those young youth peoples, skill-based targeted youth people can be employed in your labor market. So in that context, I may suggest to you, may think about annual UK-Bangladesh annual dialogue on particular issues like for education, for particular any aspect. So it can be continued every year dialogue, and such dialogue will incorporate us to give more productive future, I think, in that context. I think with this, I would like to conclude my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Dr. Sinha, MS Said? No, thank you. Mr. Abdul Haq? No, thank you. Barrister Ashraf Choudhury, microphone.
Good evening, good afternoon, His Excellency. Good afternoon to everyone. Before asking the question, I would like to introduce myself. This is Barrister Ashraf Choudhury. I'm a dual citizen of Bangladesh and the UK. I have completed my Bachelor of Laws and Master of Laws from United Kingdom. I have also done my bar professional training course at City University of London. However, let me ask my question. There are more than 7,000 dual citizens, and some of them are in Bangladesh. So what do you do for those dual citizens in Bangladesh, or what's your duty or responsibility towards them in terms of job, business, security, etc.? In addition, I would like to say that there is a barrier in Bangladesh constitution that the dual citizen is not allowed to participate in national election, I mean the parliamentary election. So what's your concern, or I would like to raise this issue with you to forward it to the concerning authority. This is my first question. And the last one, Bangladesh is currently struggling to manage its energy, and Bangladesh would like to buy oil, especially from Russia. And Bangladesh is now thinking or in a critical position to buy oil. So if Bangladesh buy oil from Russia, might be the USA may impose sanction. So if they use, if they impose the sanction, will the UK support that sanction? And if support, what would be the reason? Thanks. Thanks for listening.
Microphone. And probably the last one.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. I'm Tausif from Center of Government Studies. So I have two questions. Given the current volatile energy situation in a developing country like Bangladesh, do you think the UK government has any long-term strategy to ensure proper to tackle the situation? And my second question is, as you know, human resource development is vital to ensure institutional reforms and for the reduction of income disparity. Do you think the UK can assist in this matter? Thank you.
Thank you. Any more question, especially from media? I don't see any hand. You? No. No. Thank you, Mr. Robert Chatterton.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Again, really interesting round of questions. On the question of professional training, I mean, yes, I think UK professional services are some of the best in the world. You know, we have these really strong institutions, and I think it's great that those skills are now being made available in Bangladesh, and it obviously gives people here an opportunity to receive globally recognized qualifications, which they can use here or they can use elsewhere. So I'm very pleased that these services are being marketed here, and I think there's there's really good opportunities for that, and we're very keen that there should be more. So please carry on the good work. On scholarships, I mean, we do a range of scholarships, and Achieving scholarships, Commonwealth scholarships. So I think there is quite a lot already. And obviously, again, I would welcome it if there were more in this field. But I think, because I think one thing we do all need to recognize is that because the world is now beset by so many refugee crises, the funding for this crisis is likely to be under increasing pressure. So getting value out of each dollar, pound, taka that is spent on this crisis is very important, and it probably would be easier to do that with a longer term funding than it is with annual funding, which is what we have at the moment. And on your wider point about demographic dividend, I mean, I think it's a really good discussion to be having, and I think demography seems to me to be a sort of underappreciated science globally. It is the sort of big things that are driving the world. Demography is really important, and there's some fascinating changes at the moment. You look at the population of China vis-a-vis the population of India, and it is absolutely true. I think you make a very good point that Bangladesh has an opportunity now, while all the dependency ratios are very, very favorable. There is a huge demographic dividend, and I think this does take us back to education, training, all of those things. The key for Bangladesh is equipping its young people to be as productive as they possibly can be, to take advantage of that demographic dividend, because clearly it's been a huge success in Bangladesh, bringing population under control. It's been a remarkable success, but what that means is that there will be an age profile in what in demographic terms is the quite near future, which means that it'll be very important to make the most of this opportunity and not to let it go. But I think I find demography fascinating. I have to say it's very good to have a demographer's long-term contribution to this debate, because it's one that is often, I think, overlooked. On the UK-Bangladesh citizenship, I mean, we obviously hugely welcome the contribution that Bangladeshis. Please be realistic if you have issues. And as far as business and things are concerned, we're quite limited in terms of what we can do. So I would advise reading our travel advice, which will set it all out. But having said that, I hugely welcome the